welcome to Trek Trav. Today we're going to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine and why all of a sudden it's so popular after being the ugly stepchild to the original series and TNG. Stick around. So as a kid, I grew up watching Star Trek The Next Generation, a show which had a very episodic format. It was very light, it was very fluffy, the stories were really interesting, but overall the technology grabbed my attention as a 5-year-old, and that's all I wanted to watch. And then we got Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine was a very different beast. It was a dark show set on a space station that was falling apart. It was commanded by Captain Benjamin Sisko, who was just a commander in the beginning. We had a grumpy first officer under Kira Nerys. We had Jadzia Dax, who I'd seen before, and I think it was Hellraiser 3. Yes, I was like 8 or 9 years old. I watched Hellraiser 3. And we had, obviously, the grumpy Odo. We had the Ferengi, who weren't my favorite people from Star Trek The Next Generation. It just didn't bode well. And when I was watching it, I'm just like, oh, this is interesting. But even the sets were much more subdued. It was a dark grey-brown. All of the buttons were green. There was no exploring. It was just religion and a wormhole. It was just something that didn't appeal to me as a kid. And what I found is later on, I watched the series, particularly the later seasons, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Once they got past trying to imitate TNG in a way in that first season by inviting people like Q, Lwaxana, although the Lwaxana episodes in Deep Space Nine were some of my favorites, the show didn't lend itself to that kind of wackiness that TNG had. You also had the beginnings of things in season 1. You had Garak popping up. You had a Rom, I think, was in a few episodes, but sort of a background character. So you had a gradual beginning of things that would come to fruition later on. Every enemy that was in the beginning is pretty much in the end. Every issue that is dealt with starts at the beginning, is dealt with at the end. It's a really interesting way to start a serialized show, because it starts off kind of like Strange New Worlds, where the emotional story continued, but the plots were different. And that is fundamentally what was different. And as a kid, I couldn't understand because I'd miss episodes. I can't stay up till it was on 11 o'clock at night back when I was a kid. It would be sort of with TNG, so there'd be like 2 episodes on, and my mum would only record 1, and I had to nag her like hell. So I only saw bits, so the serialization didn't really work for me. It was only after I started, when I was a bit older, when I was about 15 or 16, and started watching Voyager, and I was really into Voyager, that I went back, oh, maybe I should give Deep Space Nine another go. And I think this is what happened to more and more fans of Star Trek Next Generation and Voyager, is they went, oh, what is this other show, this show that I've sort of put out to pasture? And it turns out that these days, Deep Space Nine is considered the best of all the Star Treks. It's got social commentary, it deals with many issues, has characters we love, it has a consequence to every action. They're questioning morality, ethics of war, ethics of just being a human, or ethics of being an alien. There's spies, intrigue, there's your funny episodes. Deep Space Nine has such a broad range of things in it. It dealt with spirituality. And if you've seen Battlestar Galactica, you can see where elements got into the creator's mind of that, because one of the creators of Battlestar Galactica, the new series, worked on Deep Space Nine. And you can see where those ideas started. And Deep Space Nine has influenced a lot, especially current Star Trek. And that's why I think it might be the best series, while still not the one that got me into Star Trek and probably still not my favorite. It is the best Star Trek series, and I'll explain why. So Star Trek Deep Space Nine influences a lot of the Star Trek that came after it. Voyager, for example, I think took on a darker tone slightly in the last few seasons. Not a continued story darker tone, because I'm pretty sure they ran concurrently with Deep Space Nine, so they didn't want to take over that role. But very much when we got to Star Trek Enterprise, we felt them sort of start off trying to mimic Voyager with that singular episode. Although there was a little bit of continuity between them in that if a ship was damaged one week, it wasn't instantly better the next. Or if Scott Bakula had a cut, he would have a cut next week. We saw a little bit of that. It wasn't until season 3 and 4 when they finally took on the Xindi arc and then eventually the little mini plots in Enterprise season 3 and 4 that they started to deal with things similarly to Deep Space Nine. You saw the introduction of Section 31 or a like organization within the Enterprise area. You saw dealing with war, dealing with trauma, dealing with all of these things that Deep Space Nine had started, a darker, edgier Star Trek. You started to see that the Federation, although progressive, still had a lot of flaws. TNG, you had the odd crazy admiral, just like the original series, but you certainly had in Deep Space Nine and Enterprise and in the newer series a Starfleet that, although they have good morals and a majority of Starfleet does good things, there is still an underlying group of people who think there's things we're doing wrong. For example, I feel that Discovery takes a lot of pointers, and Picard in that serialization, like how do we tell a big story over a long season? The advantage being that Deep Space Nine had 26, 24 episodes to tell a season-long arc, and they wouldn't focus on the arc every week, whereas Discovery and Picard very much focus on the one storyline or elements of the one storyline, and it feels like they're stretching that out. There's no break from that drama. In season 1 of Picard, the only break we get is Nepenthe when Picard goes and visits Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis, and that's my favorite episode of the entire series. With Picard season 2, it's just very stretched out. Deep Space Nine, once again, didn't have that problem because they had so many arcs going on in a season and over the course of the show that you could spread it out, interlace fun episodes with Garak and Odo or Quark and Odo. Like, you had a very mixed balance of what you could do within 26 episodes, and 10 episodes just doesn't allow for that because you've got sort of not enough time to tell the full story in a satisfying way, but almost too much time when you want to hit certain beats by certain episodes. Especially Picard season 2 suffered a lot from this. Picard season 1 did as well, where it was just very slow paced in some parts, and then a rush to the end. Discovery took a lot from Deep Space Nine in its darker tone, in its stylings. The ship is kind of coloured a bit like Deep Space Nine. The characters are kind of built the way they are in Deep Space Nine. They're all very flawed human beings. You have Picard sort of goes in its own direction, dealing with Patrick Stewart's version of what he thinks Picard should be doing. Discovery follows Deep Space Nine. What Discovery does that's different after season 2 is they inject a little bit of Next Generation in there and a little bit of Voyager. It's sort of the opposite way around. Deep Space Nine ultimately was one of the biggest influences for current Trek. The same with Star Trek 2009. If you put those two together, you've pretty much got the design of the 3 current live action series that are on TV. They're very much designed to be the whoop bang of the movies with the serialized storytelling, or at least emotional storytelling in the case of Strange New Worlds. Deep Space Nine is unique on its own within the TNG era. It's the darker show. It's the only one with serialized storylines. You have a couple in Voyager, and Enterprise tried it, but by the time Enterprise was trying it, the show was pretty much gone. Deep Space Nine, while I don't like to actually go, this is my favorite show, I like them all differently for different things, has the strongest characters: Benjamin Sisko, his son Jake, Quark, Odo, Kira, Jadzia, even Ezri. Like, Ezri comes in the last season and she's written perfectly. So Deep Space Nine is a what to do with Star Trek. I don't feel like you have to be as dark every time. And the Star Trek 2009 is a bit too bang for me, which is why I feel like Strange New Worlds sort of hits a nice balance between the two. What do you feel like about Deep Space Nine? I know I didn't like it in the beginning, but I love it now. I loved it, especially when Worf came on. Deep Space Nine would have to be The Empire Strikes Back to TNG Star Wars, in my opinion. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll have more of these videos. This is just a random one for a Tuesday. So come back next time on Trek Trap.